very scary moments. That's probably some of the scariest moments that I've had is in the passenger seat, with the public. I got to give them 10 out of 10 for commitment.
Welcome to Is It Fast, where today we are talking to Praga extraordinaire, one of the quickest gentlemen from northern side of the border. Not a lot of pressure there on you, mate, but welcome to Is It Fast. Gordie, how are you doing today?
I'm doing lovely today. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you for asking. One of the few guests to ever ask how I am, and I appreciate that. That's nice two-way interaction. So thank you very much for coming onto Is It Fast. You've had already quite an extraordinary rise in the world of motorsport and things that go quickly, both on tarmac and in the cyber tarmac world. Don't know if that's the appropriate way to describe sim racing, but we'll try and coin a phrase. But we'll start with the most recent. You were zooming around in something quite interesting this season, haven't you? Something small, aerodynamic, and rhymes with Praga. How have you found 2021 in your racing world?
Yeah, I mean, of course, the Praga's been a super experience. Of course, like in my past, I haven't driven anything with this much aerodynamics that's this light, and that's been a whole different experience. I've had to learn a lot of new things. First time with the turbo car as well. So when I put down the power, it isn't initially there, and then you get all of it. So that's been really fun to learn. So yeah, it's just been really awesome, and driving high downforce cars around circuits like Donington and the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit has been so fun.
And the Praga itself, you're not the only driver in the cockpit. So for people that aren't necessarily fully aware of either the car or maybe the competition, because I think you were driving in with the Brick Car Championship this year. I actually saw you jumping out of your Praga when we were at Silverstone earlier this season, and you look like you've been working quite hard. Which I imagine it's quite a tough little thing to control. So 10 out of 10 for physical ability there. I'm pretty sure I couldn't even fit in a Praga, let alone drive it around like you did. So many congrats. What's it like sharing a cockpit?
Yeah. Like in itself, like the longer races like is new as well, and especially having a driver partner. So like of course this year I've had Abby Eaton as a driver partner, which has been really awesome. Of course the Grand Tour driver, and she's competing in W Series at the minute. So she's been a really good good teammate. She's got a lot of experience. Yeah, it's been really interesting. Kind of being dropped into the endurance side of motorsport as well, because you have to be a lot more clever about your driving. You need to make sure that you're treating the tires well, so you're handing over the car in a good condition. You need to think about the strategy in terms of like when the safety cars are going to be. So it gives you so much more to think about. But it's fair to say I always told myself that I'd absolutely love endurance racing, and I've finally had my first taste of it this year, and it's fair to say that I've absolutely fallen in love with it. That's where I want to be, for sure. I've got a huge love for it,
and it's certainly a very glamorous side of motorsport, the endurance side of things. We always think of 24 hours of Le Mans.
Yeah,
this arguably, right, that this is your first step towards that echelon, right? So where do you see your next few steps?
Well, obviously I'd like to go towards like the GT route, like along the lines of something like British GT. Of course, like Le Mans is where it hasn't been fully announced yet, but we're hearing a lot of rumors regarding Le Mans switching to GT3 from GTE. Mm-hmm. So I think for a lot of young drivers around the world, their chances of competing in Le Mans has just went from here to like here. So yeah, I think for me, GT3 is where I want to be going in the direction of. But you got other options out there, like for example, the Porsche Carrera Cup is a great stepping stone. very, very tough championship, but it's going to teach you a lot of valuable lessons. I think we've got like a lot of options at the minute. So right now, I'm not entirely sure where I'm going to end up next year, but hopefully it's going to be a big car with a big rear wing on it.
Praga this year, big engine, big wing next year, and bigger wings and bigger engines as your career progresses. But obviously you did something before. Ginettas?
Yeah. So
rate those.
Oh yeah, the Ginettas are just like awesome. Like I really can't give the Ginetta series in general enough praise, especially the juniors and GT5, because the cars themselves, the G40s, are incredibly tricky to drive. Especially with the GT5, because it's got such a short wheelbase. The car's quite small. It's very light. It's only I think dry weight is like only 805 kilos. Of course, it's got some really grippy slicks on it, and because that wheelbase is so short, it means that it's really snappy, and it can be quite a scary car. But in saying that, it's a car that is hugely based on discipline and correct technique. If you haven't got correct technique and you haven't got discipline with the car in terms of like things like patience and just being calculated, then you're really going to struggle. So in terms of teaching someone how to be a fast driver, I think there's very few things better than Ginetta. That's definitely where I've learned everything that I've learned.
And for any aspiring racer kind of watching and, or listening to this and wanting to find their way into it, there are choices and there are opportunities. You're quite well known for racing in the sim racing world as well. So so sim racing, you're one of the sim racing jockeys that's going to be taking part in the Blue Streak Championship.
Yes, yeah.
It's a chance to pit your skills together. Not necessarily asking you for some smack talk right now, but feel completely free. But how are you feeling? And generally, sim racing, how do you feel sim racing affects your real world and real world affects your sim racing? And lots of questions in that sentence, but how are you feeling about it?
Feeling really confident going into the first round of the Blue Streaky Esports League. Like you said, like a lot of different variety of drivers in there. So I think it's going to be really exciting. Of course, like none of us being as competitive as we are, none of us have done any practice with each other. None of us have, as far as I know anyway, maybe I've been left out. But so I think, it's only on the day where we're going to find out where everyone is. I think it's going to be really exciting because, of course, a lot of us, a lot of the drivers in that league race each other in real life. So there's that added bit of competitiveness because, of course, we want to beat each other in real life. But when it comes to the sim, we want to prove ourselves even more. But I think sim racing, of course, nowadays, as it's getting more and more realistic and we're getting much better and much more usable data. Of course, the tracks are all laser scanned as well. iRacing have been working years on implementing rain into iRacing. They're coming out, recently where they're saying these incredible things about the wet tread on the tire. So the water on the track, will have different, depths considering how, deep the, those parts are on the circuit. Like certain parts of the track will puddle up because it's been laser scanned. And for example, around Alton Park, it puddles up quite a bit at turn 1 on the inside. It's going to do exactly the same on iRacing. So we're getting to a point of realism where we're really properly able to implement what we're doing in real life into the sim and vice versa. So I think for now, especially when tested, is quite limited during things like COVID or just in general during the off season. I think it's an incredibly useful tool.
Some clever people in the world, isn't there?
Yeah, it is so impressive. Yeah. Beyond us, I think. Bit beyond us.
Well, certainly beyond myself. Yeah, it's incredible. It does add a whole different dynamic to motorsport. It adds a whole different dynamic to being competitive because suddenly you can be more competitive with more people more of the time. But taking that sim racing lesson into the real world, are there any examples that you can give where you go, actually, if I hadn't tested on a certain circuit or
absolutely I do. And the big one for sure was Zandvoort in 2019. So, going into that weekend, it was a completely, level playing field. Like historically, I haven't had like the most amount of testing. So, Zandvoort was a bit of a blessing for me in my eyes because everyone was going in with no practice, which was great for me. So, I done a lot of laps on iRacing around, of course, Zandvoort to learn where all the bumps and stuff were on the track. And, that paid so much dividends because I hit the track running essentially. And I had so much more time, because I was able to get up and running within the first 5 laps. I could focus a lot more on finding that extra bit of lap time while other people were still learning where the bumps were. So, yeah. And of course, I ended up setting maybe one of the best ever laps that I've ever set that weekend in qualifying, where I managed to out-qualify the next guy on the grids by 0.6 of a second, which doesn't sound like much, but that was,
I mean,
I don't think there was any more time in that lap whatsoever.
What a difference, right? I mean, that's digital and real life coming together in
merging,
harmony.
For sure, yeah.
So that was the new layout, right? I imagine
that was the old layout actually.
Right.
Yeah, so that was literally maybe a few weeks. I can't remember actually. I think it was a few weeks before it started getting its renovation. So I just missed out on driving on the newer circuit. Yeah. So I drove on the older circuit actually.
Talking of circuits, then you've raced a number of them. Favorite place to go?
I'm incredibly biased, but I think you know what my answer is going to be.
Try me.
Of course it's not Hill. Of course I've worked there, done a lot of coaching there, done a lot of passenger laps around there with the public, which has been interesting. I've had some very, very scary moments. That's probably some of the scariest moments that I've had is in the passenger seat, with the public. I got to give them 10 out of 10 for commitment.
It's funny, isn't it? Because circuits, they do take on a personality and a life of their own, away from cars, which obviously have their own spirits and souls. I was one of those when we first went to Spa, however many years ago. And I thought, I can't be that bad. Like people are they're just having me on, right? And you get there and you go, first of all, the trees and just everything, and everyone's so lovely, that part of the world, and everyone's so nice to you and everything. And then you go out and you just go, holy, it feels almost a spiritual experience because you're at Spa.
No, definitely. Yeah. Like you can't not take a picture of it. It's a bit
right? Yeah. It's incredible.
Standing at it, it's a bit of a kind of motorsport pilgrimage,
100%. It's up there. It is a hot topic, and I it's tough because you want people to be safe.
Yeah.
But you don't want, but then it is inherently going quickly on any machine is inherently dangerous, as you well know. Yeah. So, what do you do? I suppose if someone I knew was in a particularly bad smash, you just wouldn't want it, would you? So I suppose safety.
Well, of course, I've experienced that recently with, of course, W Series with Abby.
Exactly.
And that that's, of course, I've been watching the kind of Rouge stuff over in radio, of course, over the past few years. Obviously, there's been quite a lot of events at that corner. And of course, then I do see a friend, get involved with Abby.
Yeah.
And like I personally, I do think it, I think they could do quite a lot with that corner. I think from what I'm seeing with renovations, they're going to build a grandstand, and that moves the barrier back in general, which is fantastic. The big problem is that cars are hitting the left wall and bouncing back onto the racing line.
Yeah.
So, I think, two things. We need to move the barrier back so the car can dissipate some more speed, and we need to add gravel there so it dissipates even more and the cars aren't bouncing back onto the racing line.
I agree. I think that whole vibe feels very 1950s. Hasn't really moved on with it, which I appreciate. They're going to have to dig into the hill a little bit and all the rest of it. But, if it means that we keep the history and
for sure. I don't think we need to change the corner itself, because I know at one point it was a chicane, like way back in the 1960s or something. Like a Rouge had a chicane at the bottom, which of course we don't want to do because it's such a famous corner.
We spend a lot of time talking about sport motorsport, you know, what you drive on track, the tracks that you enjoy driving and you've had success at. But presumably you spend a lot of time not driving on racetracks, because most of us don't. So just very, very gently touching on the world of the automotive and what's going on civilian routes. A, your dream car outside of what you're up to, and B, if you're happy to share, what you're driving at the moment.
Yeah, so you know, for what I drive in you know, in racing, like the Praga looks like this awesome futuristic. It is a mini LMP effectively, or big GT cars. You know, I drive a very mediocre Vauxhall Corsa. Dream car, I'd probably go for maybe I'd go for maybe a Mark II or Mark I Escort. You know, I'm a big fan of the old cars, so I'd have to say something like an E-Type or like a Mark I or Mark II Escort for sure.
That is proper connoisseur choices, and I applaud that. That is, I have nothing bad to say about any of those choices, nor do I have anything bad to say about your current runaround either. They're
I do. I'd like to get something, you know, a bit more cooler soon. But well, you know, it depends what kind of year I have next year, I guess.
Well, yeah, maybe if you have a particularly good year, you could upgrade to a Honda Jazz or something.
Honda, something nice and flamboyant like a Honda Jazz.
Gordie, thank you very much for joining us, mate, and best of luck with Blue Streak and getting yourself something with a big engine and a big spoiler at the back as well.
Yeah, thanks.
Ha 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 ha!